What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over the X-Men as we work our way up to Days of Future Present. The next crossover we're going to talk about very soon on this channel, but we have to jump back over to Uncanny X-Men once again and cover Uncanny X-Men number 251, 52, and 253. Now, this three-part story arc is going to begin the process of giving us a brand new X-Men team. Yes, you heard that right, a brand new X-Men team. But first, we have to focus on two characters who are going to be on their own. That will be Wolverine and Jubilee. And so getting into today's video, we do pick up with Wolverine on the outside of the base of the X-Men and currently being bound to a wooden X. Now we kind of find out that Wolverine was actually caught by the Reavers. Now the Reavers are a group of characters who have cybernetic body parts. Now when it comes to this group, most of them want to get revenge against the X-Men because the current base of the X-Men used to belong to them, but the X-Men took the base away from them. Now, they're being led by a character known as Donald Pierce. Now, Donald Pierce was actually part of the Hellfire Club, but he was removed a long time ago. Now, when it comes to Donald Pierce, he has a huge hatred towards mutants. And so when it comes to Wolverine, it's the perfect time to release that hatred on a mutant because, well, Wolverine is a mutant. Now, when it comes to Lady Deathstrike, she wants revenge against Wolverine. Not because he's a mutant, there is a completely different reason. But either way, we are told that Wolverine is the only hostage they have at the moment. The rest of the X-Men are currently missing. Now, that is somewhat confusing because at the end of our last video, we saw the rest of the X-Men return after going out of their way to save Polaris. Now here's the thing, in our last video, Psylocke knew if the X-Men went back to their base, most likely they were going to die. She was warned by Gateway, but either way, they were brought back to their base. But apparently, they have gone missing and no one knows where they are at, and so Wolverine is on his own. Now, there is another mutant on the grounds of the base, and that would be Jubilee. Now remember, after the X-Men were able to save Jubilee, she actually snuck through one of the portals that led back over to the base of the X-Men, but she has been secretly hiding out on the base without any of the X-Men actually knowing. And so when the rest of the X-Men left to go save Polaris, well, of course, she stayed behind. And so even though the base has been taken over by the Reavers, she has done a great job hiding from them, even though occasionally she does pop up on their sensors, but unfortunately they can't find her. But now I want to shift our focus back over to Wolverine, and here's the reason why. So you have Wolverine currently still bound to that X on the outside of the base of the X-Men, in the middle of the desert, and so he begins to hallucinate. And here's the thing, he begins to see the X-Men team that he was part of before he left on his own solo adventures. Now at first he believes that it's actually happening. The X-Men are there to save his life. But then he realizes he sees himself. But then half of the team begins to disappear, including himself. It's a way to remind us that in our last video, by that point, half the team left. Rogue, Longshot, Wolverine, Storm. Now some did not just leave on their own. Some were killed off and some left in different other ways. But it's a way for us to remember that by that point, half the team is gone. Now, while you have Wolverine continue to hallucinate, he begins to see a twisted version of Psylocke, who looks like she's a Reaver now. Now, when it comes to Psylocke, she begins to play mind games on Wolverine, but even blame him for the reason why the X-Men are no longer around. But then she changes into Sabretooth. Now remember, by this point, we had just learned that Wolverine and Sabretooth has some kind of past with one another. Now we do know that Sabretooth did kill off a woman who was close to Wolverine, better known as Silver Fox. But that's really it. But either way, you have Sabretooth continue to taunt and play mind games with Wolverine, even though he's not really there at all. It's all a hallucination. Now, when it comes to this part of the hallucination, it begins to allow Wolverine to look in the past to figure out what exactly happened to the X-Men, but on top of that, how was he able to get caught by the Reavers? It's a way to fill us in as well. And so at first, we focus on Wolverine. Now, with Kane and Wolverine and the rest of the X-Men, by this point, they were able to travel across the world thanks to a mutant known as Gateway. But apparently Gateway was not able to bring Wolverine back home for some unknown reason. And so he had to travel the long way back. But unfortunately, when he arrived back home to the base, he was ambushed by the Reavers. And so now we know how Wolverine was caught by the Reavers. But the question is now, what happened to the rest of the X-Men? Now we are able to learn what exactly happened to the X-Men thanks to Wolverine and his hallucination. You see, when it comes to Wolverine, he is able to continue to look in the past. And we kind of find out that the X-Men did come back to their base. And here's the thing, as soon as they arrived, Psylocke knew the Reavers were there. And she knew if they stayed there, they were going to most likely die. But the problem is, they're stuck there because Gateway is no longer around. He brought them back, but then he disappeared. And that is when you have Psylocke say, you know what? Let us use the Siege Perilous. Now, here's the thing. The Siege Perilous has the ability to give you a fresh start in life. Now, sometimes you are able to remember your past life, and sometimes you are not able to remember your past life. But either way, you get a fresh start somewhere else in the world. Now, here's the thing. Psylocke does not tell the rest of the X-Men that the Reavers are there, because at that moment you had the X-Men actually talking about the idea of disbanding the team. And here is the reason why. At that point in time, there was only 4 of them left, and they felt like they were failures. They felt like they were not doing a good job when it came to carrying on Charles Xavier's dream. Now, the entire time they're having this conversation, it's really more a Psylocke using her abilities to push our heroes into the Siege Perilous as a way to save their lives, but as a way to say, you know what, it's probably the best thing for the X-Men. And so thanks to her abilities, she was able to make Colossus, Dazzler, Havoc walk through the Siege Perilous, including herself, and they all get a new life somewhere else, and they don't get killed off by the Reavers. But unfortunately, Wolverine got left behind. Now, back in the present day, you do have Donald Pierce trying to continue to torture Wolverine, but he wants to hear Wolverine scream. But Wolverine knows if he screams, it's only going to benefit Donald Pierce. It's only going to please him. And he hates the idea of pleasing Pierce. Now, Pierce does get very upset, but then one of his Reavers tells him, hey man, we gotta get inside. A bad storm is about to run through here at the moment. So let's get inside under some shelter, and we'll come out here again tomorrow to continue to torture him. And you have Pierce agree, but Pierce also destroys the Siege Perilous, not allowing Wolverine the ability to use it to get himself a new life somewhere else. The entire time you had Donald Pierce and the rest of the Reavers torturing Wolverine at night, Jubilee was out there as well, except when she had decided, when she had built up enough courage to go help out Wolverine, by the time she gets there, she comes to find out that Wolverine was able to break out of his binds. But unfortunately, he does not have the strength to walk. And so Jubilee has to help him to her hiding spot. And then hopefully these two characters will be able to get away from the Reavers. Now, as we dive into the next chapter, well, we pick up with Donald Pierce and the rest of the Reavers realizing, or really finding out, that Wolverine is gone and they have no idea where he went to. Now, for Donald, he's very angry about this because he was hoping that he could finally continue to torture Wolverine more because now it's the following day and the weather is nice. But the problem is, Wolverine is gone. Now, something else I do want to mention is that when it comes to Donald Pierce, he actually created the Reavers. Now, he didn't create Lady Deathstrike. She was created by somebody else. But the rest of the Reavers, they have to thank him. And matter of fact, he reminds them, saying, hey, listen, you have to thank me for the way you are right now, being cyborgs. But right now, your next task is to find Wolverine. Now, we do see Donald beginning to have some kind of interest in Lady Deathstrike because she's the only Reaver to actually stand up to him and kind of shows that she's not scared of him at all. And if she wants to, she could easily take him down. Now, I want to jump back over to Jubilee, and here's the reason why. So like I said earlier, when it comes to Jubilee, she has been able to sneak around the base this entire time ever since the X-Men had saved her back in Uncanny X-Men number 244. Now, the reason why she was able to sneak around because she found secret passageways to use that none of the X-Men nor the Reavers knew about, and also different hiding spots behind different areas of the building. And so when it comes to the X-Men, they had no idea she was there, and the same for the Reavers. And so when it comes to Wolverine, she was able to grab him and take him to one of her hiding spots, and being able to move around so freely to gather medicine and also gather food to help Wolverine recover. Now, when it comes to Wolverine, while recovering, he's still hallucinating to the point where he begins to have a conversation with Nick Fury and also Carol Danvers. Now, we have to remember that these two characters are close friends of Wolverine in the past and also the present day. But either way, he begins to talk to them like they are actually there. Now, when it comes to Jubilee, she's also there, but in the real world. And she's also trying to talk to him. Now, he freaks out because, again, he's still trying to recover. He is still hallucinating. And so when he sees Jubilee, he's all like, I have no idea who you are, and tries to kill her. But luckily, the fake Nick Fury and the fake Carol Danvers tell Wolverine to calm down, that this girl is trying to help you. It's his own mind saying, you need to relax. Let your healing factor work, but also let her help you as well to recover. Now, I want to jump back over to Donald Pierce and one of the members of the Reavers. And here is the reason why. So when it comes to Donald Pierce, he realized that there's no computers out there that have the ability to detect the X-Men. And here's the reason why. So back in Fall of the Mutants, you had the X-Men give up their lives to stop the adversary. But when they did that, they did it on live television. And so the entire world saw it, and the whole entire world believed that day the X-Men had died, but not knowing that soon after the X-Men were brought back to life by Lady Roma. Now, when it came to the X-Men, this was the perfect situation because now they had the ability to work from the shadows, to go after their different enemies. But they also made sure that no computers out there would be able to actually locate them, except maybe the home computer. Now, when it comes to the one Reaver who is currently with Donald Pierce, he tells Donald, this computer is not normal. Like, it's not your usual computer. It seems to be coming to life, and that is kind of scary. Either way, you have Donald say, you know what, I'll take care of that later. I want to find Wolverine, and so I'm going to send in my robot dogs to hopefully locate him and to bring him down. Now, the rest of the second chapter is really more of the Reavers being able to locate Wolverine and also Jubilee. Really, they get close to finding them, but you have Wolverine saying, you know what, we have to leave the base. We have to get the heck out of here. And so you have Wolverine being able to set up different traps to get rid of most of the Reavers. Now, unfortunately, those dogs do locate Wolverine and begin to attack him. But when it comes to Donald Pierce, like the rest of the Reavers, they had no idea that Jubilee was there. And so while you have Donald so focused on Logan, Jubilee was able to pull off a surprise attack, which does bring down a wall on top of Donald to give Wolverine and Jubilee the ability to sneak away. But now we have to jump into the final chapter. Now, when it comes to the final chapter, we actually jump over to Illinois, where we pick up with a young woman, a teenager, who needs some medical help. And matter of fact, she's found by a character known as Jacob Reese. Now, when it comes to Jacob, he's going to be really important for this story and others down the road because he's involved with the Shadow King. Now, when it comes to Jacob, he finds the woman and hands her over to a nearby ambulance to take her to a nearby hospital. Now, once you have the young woman arrive at the hospital, of course, she's given over to a doctor. And this doctor is going to be Dr. Lian Shin. Now, Shin is also going to be very important for this story and others down the road. She's also involved with the Shadow King, but not at this moment. Now, when it comes to Dr. Shin, she's kind of wondering who in the world is this young woman, because apparently nobody knows who she is. But we are able to get a look at the young woman, and we come to find out it's Storm. Somehow Storm was turned into a young girl. Now we do pick up with the Reavers, and you have the Reavers trying to repair their new base that they have taken away from the X-Men, really taken away from Wolverine. Now, when it comes to Donald Pierce, he is going out of his way to give different members of the Reavers upgrades because they lost to the X-Men in the past and they failed to stop Wolverine. Now, while you have Donald doing that, you then have Lady Deathstrike using a sniper to hopefully locate Wolverine. Now, when it comes to her sniper, she's able to find him, and you would think, okay, she will take a shot right here, right now to kill off Wolverine, but she doesn't. She says, you know what? It's the coward way out. She wants to have a fair battle with Wolverine one-on-one to see who is the better person, him or her. And so she allows him to leave with Jubilee. But now we have to jump back over to the hospital that Storm is at. Now, like I said earlier, when it came to the X-Men after they had supposedly died back in Fall of the Mutants, they made sure that computers would not be able to find them anywhere across the world. And so even though this is a younger version of Storm, that effect still happens for her because you have the doctors trying their best to use different kinds of devices to hopefully figure out who in the world is she, but at the same time trying to use different devices to figure out what in the world is wrong with her, because for them, they can't see anything wrong with her at all, but at the same time, they have no idea who she is. They can't find out who she is. And so there's so many questions for these doctors. But because she's not being able to be detected on any kinds of computers, you have all the doctors just automatically assume that she is a mutant, even though she has not shown her powers to them. But now we have to jump over to Muir Island. Now, when it comes to Muir Island, we pick up with Magneto having an argument with Moira Taggart. And here's the reason why. Moira Taggart is saying that Magneto failed Charles Xavier. And let me explain. So when it came to Charles Xavier, when he had decided to leave the Earth to go spend some time with Illyandra, he hoped that Magneto would pick up where he left off at, would become the headmaster of the school, become the teacher for the New Mutants. And at first, Magneto did that. But after a while, Magneto began to move away from that position. Now, when it came to Magneto, he also joined the Hellfire Club. Now, that was his idea, but also Storm's idea as well, because they wanted to use the money and resources from the Hellfire Club as a way to protect the school and protect the New Mutants. But after a while, when it came to Magneto, he realized a war is coming very soon between mutants and humans. And he realized to himself, he realized that the best position for him to help out the mutant race is to not be a teacher, to not be a headmaster, instead to be out there to lead an army against the human race. Now, when it comes comes to Moira Taggart, she's still upset about the idea that he lost the New Mutants, because around this time in Marvel Comics, the New Mutants are on Asgard, but no one knows that yet. And so for her, she's saying, you lost the New Mutants, you lost Charles' school, you lost everything that Charles gave you because you believe a war is coming soon. But the problem is, you failed your best friend. Now, when it comes to Magneto, he leaves. But the question is right now, is she right? Did he fail? Or is he right to get ready for a war that's coming soon? Now, I want to jump back over to Donald Pierce and also Lady Deathstrike. Now, like I said earlier, when it comes to Donald Pierce, Homeboy is beginning to fall in love with Lady Deathstrike. But when it comes to our lady right here, she is going to play the hard game. She is not going to let him win so easily. But when it comes to our two characters, they're trying to figure out, where in the world would Wolverine and Jubilee go to? With all the possible locations they could go to, which one could it be? But now we have to jump over to Muir Island, where we pick up with Moira Taggart and also Banshee this time. Now, when it comes to Banshee and Moira Taggart, they're getting a call on their radio from Polaris, who is on a ship that was heading over to Muir Island. Now, when it comes to Polaris, most of the X-Men and their friends knew that Polaris was not herself, because around this time in Marvel Comics, she was being controlled by another character known as Malice. And so for most people, they still believe that she's currently possessed. But you have Polaris say, no, it's me. I am no longer possessed. Please come help me out right now before this boat goes down to the bottom of the ocean. Now, when it comes to Polaris, the reason why she's freaking out and was calling out for help, because yes, the boat is about to go under, but the problem is every single person on the boat has gone mad. They have gone crazy and trying to attack one another. And it seems that she is the only person who is still acting normal. And so we're left to believe that Polaris has also gained another ability. Now, in our last video, we saw that she had gained the ability of super strength. But now it seems she has the ability to play with people's emotions, to make them go negative with their emotions. Either way, the boat does begin to fall apart, but she is saved by Banshee, who then takes her back over to Muir Island. But now we have to jump over to the lighthouse that belongs to Excalibur. Now remember, when it comes to Excalibur, they're not there at the moment. They are currently traveling across the multiverse. But we do pick up with a character known as Amanda Sefton. And I really hope I pronounce the last name correctly. Now, when it comes to Amanda, she is a sorcerer, but she was also dating Nightcrawler in the past. And she came here looking for Nightcrawler. But unfortunately, she didn't find Nightcrawler. But instead, she found another character. And that'll be Alison Stewart. Now, when it comes to Miss Stewart, she's part of the WHO organization, Weird Happening organization. They basically go around the world to investigate weird things that are happening around the world. And that's really it. But both characters were looking for Excalibur, but unfortunately, Excalibur is not here at the moment. But now we have to jump over to Forge. Now, we have not seen Forge in a very long time in X-Men comics. Matter of fact, I want to say post-Fall of the Mutants, but pre-X-Men Inferno. Now, when it comes to Forge, he's right now going on a vision walk. But while being on this vision walk, it appears that his mind wanders into a different realm, possibly the Shadow King's realm, where he is confronted by Amal Farouk. Now, when it comes to the Shadow King, he is a multiverse being. And so across the multiverse, he has different hosts that he is able to use to complete different tasks that he wants to complete. And so in this universe is Amal Farouk. Now, when it comes to Forge, he also sees in this realm Storm as a prisoner, but she's also being transformed into a young girl, like she is right now in the real world. Now, when it comes to Forge, he tries to battle in an arm wrestling match to get Storm out of her prison against Amal, but he loses because this is the Shadow King's realm. This is his house. There is no way that Forge would be able to win so easily. Now, once Forge wakes up, his hand is gone to kind of show that dream was actually real. And Forge now knows he has to go out of his way to save Storm. Now, I want to jump back over to the hospital because we pick up with Dr. Shin. Now, when it comes to Dr. Shin, she does make a phone call to the FBI. And like I said earlier, Jacob was an FBI agent, but it seems that Jacob is now under the control of the Shadow King. And you have Dr. Shin calling the FBI because Storm is a mutant and they have no idea what to do with her or how to help her. But she has no idea that Jacob is currently possessed by an evil person who has evil plans for Storm down the road. In the last and final page, we see the Reavers realizing that there's only one location that Wolverine and Jubilee would go to, and that would be Muir Island. And so now you have the Reavers getting ready to head over to Muir Island to get Wolverine, to get Jubilee, to complete the mission that they had started. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.